Have you ever had the itch to explore off the trail? Maybe go in and never come back?
We've been going outside for a while, but we found ourselves feeling constrained because we were always hiking on trail. Trails are great, really marvels of human progress. But when we were hiking on trail, we were always limited to the trail network and these squiggly lines. So we wanted to learn how to break this mold of being an on-trail hiker and expand our horizons. Learn different skills and get more familiar with the landscape and be just a little bit uncomfortable and hopefully run into fewer people. So we're in Mount Rainier National Park right now, 13 hours away from home. And we're going to do a short off-trail trip tomorrow. What's different about off-trail travel is 4 things: preparation, movement skills, navigation, and mindset.
First, knowledge. Off-trail trips can require an enormous amount of planning. Depending on how off-trail they are and how long they are, it's important to be familiar with the terrain, know the ridges and the drainages. Of course, get a map and study it. Caltopo and Google Earth are our friends. We like to do flyovers of any off-trail routes we're planning to do on Google Earth just before we go, to solidify the mental map in our heads, but also study data from other people who have gone where we're going. We can often find forum posts or trip reports. We can also ask rangers who have hiked in the area recently, who might know about very up-to-date conditions. Before we go, we try to visualize how it will go and how we'll manage risk. Think about where route finding will be hard, or what time we hope to be on the summit or back down again. If there's snow, how the snow will change with the time of day, and how to contact the emergency response system available in the area if it comes to it.
This sounds like a lot, and it is. So it's helpful to start small, which is what we're doing here today. We're making a short, off-trail route that connects 2 trails. We're going to try to hike the Burroughs Mountain Trail to Burroughs 1, 2, and 3, then do an off-trail scramble over to the top of Skyscraper Mountain, then scramble down and join the Wonderland Trail back to the car. If it gets too tricky, we can always reverse our off-trail course and go back to the original trail. This is also a day trip, so we don't have to worry about carrying full packs while we do this. Although we do always carry enough emergency gear to be ready to build a makeshift camp in the wilderness. Okay, time to go off-trail.
When we're going off-trail in the United States, it's helpful to know the different classes of the Yosemite Decimal System that are used to rate the difficulty of walks, hikes, and climbs. Class 1 is simple walking. Most trails are Class 1 terrain. Class 2 is steep hiking either on-trail or off-trail. We might need hands for balance. Class 2 is mostly found in mountains or canyons. Class 3 is where we start to need our hands to bear our weight, and there's increased exposure and we will get hurt if we fall. And Class 4 is essentially like Class 3 in difficulty, but with more serious exposure where we will get seriously injured or die if we fall. Class 5 is rock climbing, where usually a rope and belaying are used for safety, and it's split into many more subclasses ranging right now from 5.0 to 5.15D to define progressively more difficult moves.
So as we move into Class 2 and Class 3 terrain, we have to learn and practice how to move gracefully and efficiently over boulders, talus, scree, and exposed rock or snow. First, take small steps. Smaller steps let us have a smoother and more controlled weight transfer, which improves traction on small footholds, makes loose rocks less likely to shift under our feet, and lets us stand more upright and in balance.
Practice one-footed balance so that we don't have to rush between foot placements, and feel more confident finding the perfect target foothold.
We try to be slow on, or avoid, walking on any sand, dirt, gravel, or pebbles that are lying on a hard surface, like a rock slab or hard dirt, especially when we're going downhill. If we're not careful, we can find ourselves sliding out of control. If possible, always choose an alternative route on clean rock, even if it's a little out of the way. And we try to adjust our walking style to suit the terrain. For example, on clean, dry rock, we flatten our feet to put more rubber on the rock. On hard but slippery surfaces, we shift our weight more delicately and take tiny steps. If we're walking on the beach, we try to stay in the intertidal zone between the high and the low tides and be aware of the tide tables. And if we're on hard dirt, frozen mud, or firm snow, we can kick edges to be more secure, or not.
As we get into Class 3, we typically put our trekking poles away and try to keep at least 3 points of contact with the rock at all times. 2 feet and a hand, or 2 hands and a foot. We try to move as quietly as possible. That way we're putting the minimum amount of force into each movement.
And find good footholds, and use our hands mostly for balancing and getting to the next hold. When the footholds aren't large or obvious, we can use smaller holds by edging, where we step onto the foothold with the rubber on an edge of our shoes, Or smearing, where we press as much of the sole of our shoes as possible onto the rock and use that friction to push ourselves up. These non-technical movement skills look a lot like walking and seem like common sense, but these small things add up to make a huge difference in how quickly and confidently we can move over unfamiliar terrain, and they improve really quickly with practice.
The third thing that makes off-trail travel different is navigation. When we're staying on trail, we usually can get away with just following the trail, even if we don't have a very precise idea of where we are. But this is pretty not true for off-trail travel. To travel confidently off-trail, we need to maintain a good sense of our location, the direction we're traveling, and our destination at all times. Our phones have excellent GPS features now, and it's super helpful to have an app like Caltopo or Gaia GPS to track yourself, and load other people's GPX files in beta.
We try to use GPS only as a backup for navigation though, because our GPS unit will definitely eventually run out of batteries, and we don't want to be stuck out somewhere with no idea of where we are. When we go off trail, it's important to be very familiar with map and compass skills like terrain association and finding and following bearings. Map reading and compass skills are super important, and we'll probably put up a couple separate videos on them to dive deeper. These skills only take a few minutes to learn and a few hours to practice, and they'll make future adventures much better equipped. Beyond large-scale navigation, knowing where we are and what direction to go in, we also have to practice micro-navigation, that is, how to choose the best line from any point A to point B, the safest and the fastest way. We've learned that the shortest line between 2 points isn't always the best. Traveling farther with less elevation change is often faster. For example, ridges often look harder than they really are, and gullies look easier than they are. Having the high ground gives us a better vantage point, and ridges are often a direct route to the summit we're aiming for. We're at the summit of Skyscraper Mountain now, at 7,017 feet, which means it's time to appreciate the view, then get back on trail. The last thing about traveling off-trail is making sure that we have the right mindset. An off-trail trip is always an adventure, and we need to know we're responsible for everything that happens en route.
That means making sure everyone has the appropriate equipment and stamina to complete the route, making tough decisions like turning back due to weather changes or time constraints, and, if an accident occurs, coming up with a plan and carrying it out. We have to watch out for each other and make sure we always know where everyone is and keep the party together. And we should expect and plan to go much more slowly. Traveling off-trail often means going 1 or 2 miles per hour max, sometimes slower. So it's important to lower our expectations. But seeing absolutely no one else out there can definitely make up for it.
When was the last time you experienced true solitude or true silence? You can get this off the trail in a way you can't anywhere else. Please let us know if there are any off-trail trips that you'd recommend. We're always looking for new places to go.
Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time!